I'm joined today with Miriam Coronel-Ferrer, a peace negotiator and former chairperson of the Peace Panel that successfully signed a peace agreement with the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. She is also a professor of political science at the University of the Philippines. She has published many books and journals, and in 2015, Professor Ferrer won the Hillary Clinton Award for Women, Peace and Security. Welcome. So the US National Action Plan for Women, Peace and Security is a result for the UN resolution. In your opinion, what is the role of women in promoting peace?
Well, the resolution itself talks about several agenda, and one of that is precisely promoting the role of women in peace. And the roles are multivariate. You know, peace is everything. You need a lot of aspects there. So you do need women negotiators. You need women advocates. You need organizers on the ground. You need women working, helping out in the rehabilitation effort. Women in politics to make sure good decisions are made. So these are all roles of women in peacemaking, because in peacemaking, it's everything.
So you were the first female negotiator in the world to sign a final peace accord with a rebel group. In reality, how ready were they to accept a woman? Did it take a long time for them to gain your trust and listen to you?
You know, it's always like that, right? If you come in as a woman, you sort of have to prove yourself first before you earn that kind of respect on the table or in most other things like professional life. I mean, somehow women just have to work harder to be really recognized for what they're doing. And that's how it was. There was a time when they doubted my capability, and at the same time, they had no choice. So they had no choice because they didn't choose who was on our side the same way that we didn't choose who their negotiators were. So it meant that they had to settle down and work with a woman for the first time in their lives in the negotiating process. And we were able to bridge that gap. We were able to show that we can be competent, very important. Mm-hmm. It's not just about being a woman, it's also about being a woman who is competent and suitable for the job. Mm-hmm. And that builds respect, that builds acknowledgement, being acknowledged and being accepted.
And was it intimidating?
I work with men for most parts of my life, so it was not like something, a radical change for me. But we were talking with an Islamic group that was not used to women in public life, that's used to political life among men for most parts, because that was customary for them. So they did have to make certain adjustments in that, and I had to make it easy for them as well, so that the adjustment phase wouldn't take so much of the time, and we could get down to the brass tacks of real negotiations. So we were able to overcome that.
And there have been criticisms of your negotiations with what a Filipino senator, Alan Peter Cayetano, calls terrorists. You've had images of you doctored and posted on the internet, which I assume were to humiliate and discredit. How have you dealt with this, and has it had a damaging effect on you in the Philippines?
Yeah, because part of trying to destroy the integrity of the peace agreement and the whole peace process was to destroy the integrity of the negotiators among those who were opposed to it. Maybe because they misunderstood it or they got wrong information, which happened a lot. You know, a lot of fake news came out about the agreement. A lot of it very inaccurate, very untrue, like having a separate army for the new Bangsamoro Autonomous Government. That was never part of the talks. Of course, we will only have one Philippine army, but a lot of wrong information like that came out. So for me, having to deal with the sexism that was very present in social media, interactive news sites, my attitude was, no, this cannot happen. I mean, it's not just about me, it's about all the other women who will come after me and be put in a position of leadership in public life and be subjected to this kind of sexism. That's not acceptable. So what I did was to talk to some friends, how to, to bring that out in the open and oppose it. And now you actually have a lot of people coming out, saying that this sexism cannot happen. You have the Me Too campaign, against sexual harassment, women coming out in the entertainment industry, and all this sexism in the mass media, a lot more people speaking out. It just cannot continue. That was my attitude, and it kept me strong. Also because I had the support of other women. So it's very important to have that kind of network of support among women, also among men, but especially among women, because they knew where you're coming from. They knew why it's very important to address this issue.
In November, there will be the 8th round of inter-Syrian peace talks here in Geneva. The Women Advisory Board is calling for 30% of the panel to be women. Do you think they'll be successful?
Well, they've done it in Nepal, where you had the 30% quota, also in Afghanistan. So you do have a lot of this quota system being put in place. But actually, in our case, we didn't go to the extent of having a quota system. It was, for us, something that you could push along the way, so long as the principle is there about women's participation, meaningful participation, and special programs for women, then you push that. So it could come naturally, so that, but in other cases, they found it helpful to put it as a precondition. So 30% quota, once accepted around the table, certainly it has to be meaningfully implemented. Sometimes it doesn't always happen like that. Like you might not be getting the right women to actually fill up the quota. Just because there's a quota, you fill it up. But that's part of the evolution. But if it weren't there, you might not have any women. So it's a good thing that it's been accepted that it's there. And then you build on that along the way. You get more women trained so that they actually get there and become really capable of being part of that 30% quota.
President Duterte, along with other world leaders like Trump, have made public comments which are derogatory and outrageous towards women. Do you think he would have appointed a woman as chief government negotiator in peace talks, as it was President Aquino III who appointed you?
A woman that will be working for a president like that, who would have remarks like that, would be in a dilemma, I would think. Maybe, on the one hand, it's important to be able to see through the peace process, but on the other hand, how far can you tolerate misogynist remarks? That's for you to decide. Maybe there are priorities that you want to take care of and disregard that, but I think there's a point where you won't be able to live with it. And that moment will come and you will have to make a decision whether you see yourself staying in this situation or getting out of it.
When you chose to study philosophy, did you have a career goal in mind?
Most of the time I just, I let the moment flow.
Go with the flow?
Not really go with the flow, but there's a moment. At that time, we were under martial rule. We were under a dictatorship, an authoritarian regime. And it was important for me when I realized that that was the situation, this is what was happening to the country at the time, I joined the resistance against the dictatorship. So when I was a college student, it's not like I'm thinking of this career. I was thinking of the country that was under a dictatorship and how important it was for us to be able to build strength to resist the dictator. And we did that. We succeeded. We had People Power Revolution in 1986. By that time, I was way past college. I was a young mother at that time. Martial law, I was in grade school and it finished when I was already a young mother. So most of my adult life was actually being part of the movement against the dictatorship. I didn't have any specific career in mind. But that kind of experience led me to where I am now, because it was about the struggle, an armed struggle against the dictatorship, an armed struggle that had to find resolution through some other means other than through war. And that's how I got into peace advocacy. That's how I started studying about peace processes, getting into experiences across the world, and also focusing and monitoring what's going on in the peace negotiations in our country. And I ended up being tapped to actually be a peace negotiator. That had to do with that life that I led as a student activist, a young adult fighting dictatorship, and then becoming a peace advocate, eventually becoming a peace negotiator.
And as a philosopher, what are your views on religion? bearing in mind that the conflict between the Moro Islamic Liberation Front and the government is mainly of a religious nature?
Actually, in our tradition, we've always espoused the religious tolerance. So for me, this is not really, maybe at the social level, there's like discrimination. Muslims are discriminated by the majority in that sense, and there's very little social interaction across religions. But the conflict itself is political. It's about recognition precisely of the right to self-determination of a group of people who are different in religion, a little bit of difference in history, in their evolution as a people from the rest of the country, who feel oppressed because of having been minoritized, marginalized, very far away from the center. The culture, the politics are all defined by the people in the center, and who therefore did not associate. So that's not about religion. That's about basic human rights. It's about social justice. And that kind of framing really had to be appreciated by everybody who tried to simplify this conflict as a conflict between Christianity and Islam. It's not. It's about all of these things. It's about social justice. It's about the way the world is constructed, the way we frame our narratives as a people or as a global community that has left out a segment of the population.
And what advice would you give women following in your footsteps?
Have a dream, work for it, you know. There's a big world out there, get out there and make it a better world.
Okay, thank you.